Hey everybody, you've already had your delicious coffee for today. This is the afternoon. It's way too late for coffee, where I am and where you are probably. But never too late to talk about President Trump and persuasion. And we have new stuff to talk about. So I'm back by popular demand. I have to warn you in advance that I'm super tired today. I didn't get much sleep. So if I slur my words, it's not because I'm having a stroke. Probably. It might be, but chances are not. All right, so I've been reluctant to weigh in too heavily on the whole DACA, CHIPS, government shutdown, budget, comprehensive image, authorizing the wall versus whatever the other word is that's different than authorizing. And the big problem is I'm having trouble understanding it all. There are too many moving parts, and it's not like ordinary life because the government has these arcane rules about things like the nuclear option and blah, blah, blah. But let me analyze this the way I think the public will. The public will be a lot like me, meaning they're not going to dig into the arcane details of things. So if there's any subtlety, any shade of this or that, that's all going to be missed by appropriating versus approving. It's all going to be missed by the public because the public just isn't that tuned in. So let's talk about what the public will see. What the public will see is that there was a game of chicken between the Republicans and the Democrats, and that the Republicans, according to most of the major news media, are spinning this as a Republican victory, which they also describe as a White House victory. Do you know why they call it a White House victory? Does anybody know why even the press who doesn't like President Trump calls it a White House victory? Because then if they call it a White House victory so they don't have to say it's a Trump victory. Now, it does appear that the president got his way, as did the Republicans. At least a little bit, in the sense that the government is going to be back and running temporarily. And I don't think they gave up much of anything to do that. So it's going to look like the Democrats tried to negotiate. They did a very weak version of it. Some people saw the president's tweet that he was considering the so-called nuclear option, which is instead of getting 60 votes out of 100, they would just give 51, which would be good enough. They could do it with all Republicans, but it's not your first choice. So I think everybody watching this is going to come away saying for the millionth time something that looks a little bit like this. Excuse me while I do a little bit of folding to create my anti-Trump goatee. It goes like this. Well, that crazy clown, he is never going to get nominated. He what? He got nominated? Well, I didn't see that coming. Well, I'll tell you one thing. He's certainly never going to win the What? He won the election? Well, a bunch of racists must have elected him. I didn't see that coming. Well, he's certainly not going to have a good year, and the economy is going to crash. What? The economy is at an all-time best. Consumer confidence is up. The stock market's up, and jobs are good. Okay, I didn't see that coming. But I'll tell you one thing. Once we shut down this government, we're going to make all those Trumpers rue the day that they ever messed with us, with our strength. We're all pulling together and... What? Okay, so the shutdown didn't work out just the way we planned. But I'm sure the very next thing we come up with is going to be a winner. Have you heard anything about the Russia investigation lately? Maybe we just won't talk about that anymore. Good idea. Scene. So here's how I interpret the latest situation. President Trump has this, he started with this reputation of being a good negotiator. But by the time you go through a political process, an election, and you've got enemies pushing persuasion at you like crazy, they did a good job of making at least half the country doubt that he could do the very thing he was famous for being good at, which is negotiating. And so they got to watch right in front of their eyes a clean case of a negotiation in which he walked away from a deal, and everybody said, you can't walk away from that deal. What are you talking about? It's the same thing you liked last week. And of course, you can walk away from a deal. Yeah, you can walk away from any deal. So we've now seen him negotiate in public, and even according to CNN and outlets that would normally be a little negative for the president, even they are saying, well, this looks like a White House win because they don't want to say Trump win. So I think the public has a little bit more of the Trump hysteria deflation. It already seems so long ago that the shithole controversy was a thing. Like, I already can't remember it. It just feels like a distant past now. So this is going to be added to the power of the president. Every time your president who says he's a good negotiator is shown in public to negotiate in a way that that observers think is successful, his reputation as a good negotiator improves. And so does his power, because if he comes into a negotiation as the one everybody expects to win, it kind of gives you permission, if you're on the other side, not to do so well. So in other words, if you know you're competing against someone who has a reputation as being, really good at it, you might try harder because they're really good at it, but you also have a little bit of permission not to win. And that's a situation that's shaping up right now. Yeah. Meanwhile, the beauty of the tax cut, and I have to admit I didn't see this coming. Newt Gingrich saw this coming a little bit more clearly. He called it out right away. That when people start seeing their paychecks increase with the tax cut, that's very visual, it's very personal, and that's going to make a big difference. But on top of that, I didn't realize that because there are, I don't know how many companies in the country, big companies, but there are a lot of big companies. And they've all noticed by now that their employees are asking, hey, what's wrong with us? Those other companies are giving bonuses. We got the same tax cut they did. What are you, cheap bastards? So it got really hard for management to just say, no, we're just keeping this, or we're just going to give this back to stockholders or something like that. But there's so many companies that as each of them trickles out with their own version of a give back, it becomes another headline. It's like, oh, company A, oh, next week, company B. It's sort of possibly never going to stop, or at least not before 2018 midterm elections. So it's probably the best sort of ongoing, confirmation bias, although it's not really bias because it's real numbers and it's really happening. But your sensation of it will always be top of mind because there'll always be another company in the news saying, oh, we're doing it too. Hey, give us a little credit, you people in the press. We get a little free press for doing something maybe we wanted to do anyway. Now, obviously, there will be some people. I think Ezra Klein claimed that the Republicans came out okay in the negotiations because they got the Republicans to agree that they would talk about DACA or discuss it. And I'm not sure that's a big win because the Republicans have always wanted to discuss it. People are largely on the same side. Now, here's what's interesting. Suppose the Democrats offer the wall, and that's all they offer. At the same time, the Republicans are saying, we also want an end to chain migration. I just saw a statistic go by, maybe you can confirm that this is true. There's something like 3/4 of the country, I think more than 3/4 of the country, favors an end to chain migration. Now, how did the Democrats win holding off on a topic that 75% of the country wants? How in the world do you win that contest? So I'll tell you what's coming. What's coming is, hey, we're giving you funding for some part of your wall. Give us DACA. What do you think the president's going to say if the polls say that 75% of the public is on his side about ending chain migration? Well, he's not going to agree. He's not going to say yes when 75% of the country is on his side. He's the populist president. If there's anything he wasn't ever going to say yes to, it would be, yes to go along with chain migration the way it currently stands. And the visa lottery too, yeah. Now, let me ask you this. I tried this argument out the other day, but I want to run it by you again because I think I wasn't looking at comments when I did it. I believe that that a lottery-based immigration system is racist. Does everybody agree with me that a lottery-based system is racist? Yeah. I don't know why I haven't seen anybody else make that point. Because when you first hear it, well, it's a lottery, that's got to be fair. What could be more fair than a lottery? And the argument, there are a few people who said that it's not racist. But let me tell you the argument. The argument is this, that the richer countries are going to have the people who have the wherewithal to move to the United States. So they also have the knowledge, the capacity, the education to fill out whatever forms you need to do to get into the lottery, which can't be easy. I'm guessing that the average person probably isn't even, I don't know how difficult these forms are. I'm not very good at filling out forms. I feel like I could just barely do it if I tried really hard. It's probably hard. So you eliminate whole swaths of, let's say, Africa, where maybe they don't speak English, they don't know too much about the United States, they wouldn't have the resources to move here if they were picked, they haven't heard that a lottery exists, they wouldn't know how to get into it, they would have trouble filling out the paperwork. It has nothing to do with Africans as people. It's just if you come from an economy that is not producing a lot of scholars, then you're going to have fewer people who can even qualify for the lottery because you have to sign up, presumably. So it seems to me that a lottery almost guarantees you get a lot of Norwegians, if you know what I mean. All right? And that wasn't really the point of it. Now, here's the other argument I hear that's terrible. Some people said that the immigration based on either a disaster in the country, let's say the situation with Haiti, or the lottery, allow some awesome people who would otherwise not have a chance to be great Americans to come to this country and then emerge through their own hard work and character to become not just good citizens, but great citizens. So some of those people could come from very impoverished beginnings, and just through hard work and character and making the right choices, they could become real solid citizens. They could even do something, big, could accomplish great things for the country. Now, I think all that's true, Because if you are talking about any big population and you bring them into the country, it seems likely that they would be some, not some, but probably plenty of people who excel and do well and you're glad you got. But wouldn't that be true no matter what your process was? What makes us think that we would get fewer of those awesome people if we had a merit-based system? If the thing we're trying to solve for is to let as many people as possible who could excel and become good Americans in, isn't the merit-based system unambiguously the greater statistical likelihood of doing that? And if you were to disallow people who could get in on merit in favor of people who were, let's say, picked by a lottery or picked because of some disaster in the country, a special case in that case, why do we think we'd get a better result in terms of people, emerging and becoming sort of superstars of American patriots? I'm not sure the argument makes any sense. My mic is on. Yes, who decides what merit means? Well, some of it probably has to do with education and skills, and some of it probably has to do with, can you speak English? Are you sponsored? Do you have a way to live as soon as you get here? I assume it's some combination of that sort of thing. And as other people are saying, other countries have similar merit systems. What about the brain drain? Well, it seems to me that if we do a merit-based system, we would be taking the best from various countries, but not so many of their people that it should make a huge difference, I wouldn't think. India has a lot of people. How many could we take? And if you took 10,000 geniuses, here I'm defining geniuses as somebody who could be like a high-end STEM employee, for example. If you took 10,000 geniuses out of India, how many are left? A lot, right? 100 million or something? A lot. There are a lot of smart people. So I'm not entirely sure that we could drain enough from those other countries to make a difference. Who's going to pick our fruit, someone says. Well, I'm in favor of bringing in people at various different skill levels. So I think there needs to be some accommodation for the type of workers that we can't easily get in any other way. What about U.S. genius? Well, we're already here. We don't have to immigrate because we're already here. All right, I'm just looking at your comments. Drones and robots. Did everybody see the video of I think it was the first rescue of a riptide? Some teenagers got pulled out with a riptide. I think it was in Australia. And the lifeguards had a drone that they had just gotten for that purpose, because the drone goes out and it drops a life raft or some kind of inflatable thing that they grab onto. And man, that was so effective. The drone was over them in moments, dropped that thing down, they grabbed it. They were good from that point on. What about the FBI missing texts? All right, so the FBI stories, here's another category where I think the public in general is having a tough time putting their brains around all the ins and outs of the FBI, Department of Justice, 5 different topics within that area. It's all getting kind of confusing. But it seems that there's a suspicious lack of text messages in a period of time that was probably pretty critical to understanding what was happening with the FBI's investigation. Now, what I'd like to know is what other things like that have also been lost. In other words, did lots of people also lose their history of text messages? Or was it only these people? Right? You kind of need to know that to know if it's a big deal or just a coincidence or what it is. So that's question number one. Did other people lose data, and is there somebody in IT who can say, oh yeah, that was me, I hit the wrong button. I used to be working in Hawaii and in the defense systems, but now I'm working here, I hit the wrong button and I deleted a bunch of text messages. If that happened, then I'd say, well, maybe it's not what we think. But if it turns out that only those messages are missing and everybody else is fine, then I think you got a real problem. And I think somebody else noted that it makes it very difficult to convict the president of any kind of collusion or anything else, because the case would be so terribly tainted at this point that a defense attorney would just drive a truck through it. Yeah. Now the question I have to ask is, I assume that these are messages that were only on the FBI's, it must have been their work phones. So fact check me on this. Were we talking about the FBI issued official work phones that had the text messages on it, and those are the ones that are missing? Or was it their personal phones? Because if it was the FBI's phones and they've lost their records, that's a little worrying. Like, how does the FBI lose records like this? Now, here's the next question, and I haven't heard anybody ask this. In addition to text messages being stored in whatever way they're stored, maybe the FBI has their own way of storing them, don't we have this NSA system that's sniffing every conversation that happens everywhere? So don't all of us have a backup, if you know what I mean? It's just in some bunker in the government. Can you really lose those text messages if the NSA is listening and recording everything? I don't know that you can, because if you lost your local stuff, and then you also somehow amazingly lost your backups accidentally, what are the odds that you would lose your source data and whatever backups just naturally occur in the world of IT at the same time? But even if we did, seems to me that somebody could find those messages again, if you know what I mean. And if not, I'm sure Russia has them. Just kidding. Yeah, one of the other 17 intel agencies who are all duplicating each other's work according to the government. No data is lost. Okay? So somebody's telling me that there is no data that's lost. And I believe that's probably true in the larger sense. FBI agents have human opinions. Yeah, they do. You can't get rid of human opinions. It would be impossible for the people in the FBI. So it seems to me that Strzok and Lisa, his girlfriend, it seems there would have to be a pretty high bar that would have to be crossed of just obvious bias in the work that they did, not just bias in their opinions about politics. I don't know if that will be accomplished. Am I getting sick? Well, I only had a few hours of sleep last night. I'm sad to report that Boo the cat ran away and is missing in action. So I've been up all night looking for my missing cat. But she used to be an outdoor cat before I converted her, so I expect her to show up in the next few days. Yeah, the comments about insurance against a Trump win, I think that those things could be interpreted more than one way. So we need to wait to see how the people who actually said those words tell us we should interpret them. Yeah, we have, unfortunately, speaking of Boo the cat, we have a mountain lion. So in my neighborhood has like an actual mountain lion that's been wandering around killing stuff. So, yeah, Boo is chipped. She's got my phone number on her collar and she's chipped. So one way or another, I imagine I will be hearing from her. All right. Yeah, she's probably just on an adventure. Well, I don't know if she knows where my house is. That's the problem because I live in a neighborhood that's not far from where she used to live. So her old house is, a 2-minute walk away. So she might have been trying to get into her old house. Put the cat box outside for her. Well, I might do that. Yeah, I would hate to be the mountain lion that came up against Boo. She's a really tough cat, assuming she's still alive, which is a very tough thing to think about today. So I'm going to go look around for her again, see what I can do. I'll keep you informed if I find her, but I probably will in a few days.